Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 3, Episode 37. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. I'm delighted to welcome Shane and Jocelyn Sams, who are from the Flip Lifestyle podcast, and their two children. We've got Isaac and Anna Jo. Isaac is 8 years old and Anna Jo is 6. And we're going to be talking through our 10 questions and getting to know a little bit about what they think about their schooling and also what they might change if they had the choice. So welcome very much to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Isaac, thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So, first of all, whereabouts are you in the US? Because our UK listeners over here will certainly realise that you're not from England. So, whereabouts are you in America?
We are actually from Kentucky, right on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. So, we are from the South in the United States.
Fantastic. And what type of schooling do you do at the moment? What type of school are you at?
We go to a public school. It is a city independent school here in Kentucky. So it is a state school, but it's like ran by a small local community, basically. It's not a big county school or something like that.
Got you. Okay. So it may well be that a lot of these things that seem like good ideas are things that you get the experience of already, which is kind of my experience from chatting to some other children already. When it's a small community-based school, they're often a lot of this sort of pupil-first idea and child-centered learning really comes across, which seems to be the key to everyone being very happy. So let's crack straight on, and here we go with question 1. So if you could design your own classroom, what would it look like? And by that I mean kind of in terms of sort of space. Would you have a sort of a big sort of loft style room where you can do lots of things, a bit of study, bit of exercise, bit of, I don't know, trampolining, something? Or would it be sort of a more traditional classroom where you're sort of sat in rows and working at tables? What sort of thing, if you had complete control, what sort of classroom would you like to work in?
Isaac, so what kind of class, if you could design your own class, like if you could build it in Minecraft, like your school, what would you want your classroom to look like? Do you like it at desks and tables like it is now, or would you make it different?
Desk. I'll make a desk like mommy and daddy's, and I would have 2 or 3 computers
at your desk.
Yeah.
So you would. What do you mean you would want a desk like mommy and daddy's? What do you mean?
Like exactly like yours.
Oh, you want like an office desk like we
Yeah.
work on like every day.
Yeah. And I want lots of tables and chairs.
Okay.
And there'll be lots of cubbies.
You'd have lots of cubbies.
Yeah.
So you could bring. Would you want to bring more stuff to school than what they let you bring now or something?
Yeah.
Oh.
And there'll be. I forgot what I was gonna say.
You've opened a rabbit hole.
Yeah, what sort of stuff would you like to bring into school then? What sort of stuff would you take?
What would you put in your cubbies? All these new massive cubbies that you're building.
Like each student gets 2 cubbies, and one of them is for like the stuff they did like the day before, so they can bring it back, or they can put it in there to dry or something, and then the other one's for their backpack.
Oh, okay. So you just want more room to put your stuff to
Yeah.
display it, kind of deal.
There'll be like a big screen up front, and it could play lots of stuff.
You want a big screen TV in your room instead
Yeah.
of the projector?
Yeah, and there will be in the back. There will be like in the back of the classroom. There will be like computers, like the newest computer that's ever released.
The newest computers, the best
Yeah.
technology, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. If you're going to create your own classroom, you may as well have the best of the best, I guess.
You can tell Isaac loves technology.
Yeah. Well, and you can see from the screen here, you're surrounded by the best of the best there. So
We work at home, so like it's funny how that imprints on them like that, you know. Okay, Anna Jo has went total shy mode, so Isaac will be the Flip Lifestyle Kids spokesperson.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You go for it. Fab. So, following on from the type of room that you'd like to be in, how would you create your day and spend the most of your time? I mean, you give us a little bit of an idea of how you spend your time now during the school, but would you maybe spend more time outside, more time inside, playing more games, more studying? If you sort of could split your day up into whatever segments you like, how would you think you would do that?
What?
Well, what is your day like now? What do you do at school, like when you get there?
When I get there,
Talk into the mic,
I
Isaac.
don't know what I'm gonna do this year and stuff, but last year and this year I'm going to a different school, so I don't know what it's gonna be like.
It'll be the same as last year. So tell them about last year.
I think it's last year we had like every time there's like a little line in front of it, and then they like drop you off in the car, and then you go inside the school, go inside the gym for morning. We do like the pledge and the pause. That's what we called. And
So you did the Pledge of Allegiance in a big group in the gym,
yeah,
right?
and
Then where did you go?
And then they told us the weather and stuff. Kids went up there and did that.
Okay. So they told you the weather, and then where
Yeah.
did you go?
And then then the principal said we were dismissed, and then we go to our classroom. And
What was your classroom like? What did you party all day, or did you sit in desks and learn?
sit at desk. We had like we did once. It's kind of weird. Like we had like a desk, like we had like a big one that was like this, and then it went that way, and that was it. And it was like 6 desks meshed together.
So your desks weren't in rows; they were in sort of different.
So you sat around like a big table, kind of.
Yeah.
All of the
And
desks
then
made a
there's
big table.
Gap at one side to where our teacher could go through. But then she moved it to where they were separate and no connected. And then she moved it back at like the end of the year.
So
Ah.
most of your day was spent doing like things at desk, right?
Yeah.
But then you went outside for a little while. You went to lunch for a little while. So what he's asking is, how would you change that? If you could make that different, what would you do?
Like, because you told me at the end of the year last year you got a little bored. So like, how would you
go
change it?
outside mostly. And
Mostly.
yeah,
Like how long? Like what would you do outside?
play.
Just play.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, just play. Yeah, why not? If you can choose, I guess that's it. I mean,
And I would let them like bring their computers and stuff.
Oh, so more
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah.
So you would take your computer outside.
Well,
Yeah.
what,
Yeah,
what
right.
about exercise? Typical American. We don't think anything about that.
No.
No exercise?
Would you
No.
play on the playground, or would you like? What about like all your classes? Like, do you want to like read your books outside too, and just do no reading? Okay, we're not doing that. So
Well, there will be no learning except for like an hour.
well, you have to learn. That's why you have
Except
school.
for an
Yeah.
hour.
All right.
just after school for a bit of babysitting. Yeah, great. So you haven't got an outdoor classroom then, so all those things outside would just purely just be for fun and just enjoying yourself, and yeah, no extra learning at all. Well, that's fair enough. I can see that, especially when you're 8, you want to spend a lot of time playing with your friends, and the learning can fit around the playing. That might be an interesting starting point.
We were teachers for 10 years. My wife and I were. So like, it's just very institutionalized, and I think a lot of kids would echo what he just said. Like, they just want to go outside
There's
more.
definitely not enough play here.
Yeah.
They get approximately 15 minutes a day
In
of
elementary
just,
school.
Just free play.
Yeah. So it's
Gosh, that's quite short, isn't it?
they don't even get PE every semester. So like physical education. So
Really? Gosh.
too focused on testing, you know?
Yeah, we're much the same over here, but I think they do get a little bit more outside play than that. But even so, not enough. Definitely a little bit more of a balance. I think would be a good starting point. It would seem for everybody that I've chatted to about this. So you're not alone there. So having talked about tests, and the next question is kind of, how do you assess your progress, or how do you know you're improving in the things that you're studying? It sounds like you have lots of tests over there as well. But do you find that a good way to understand that you're learning the things that you've been asked to do during the time? And how often maybe do you get to do your tests over there?
Isaac, do tests help you know that you're learning something, or do they stress you out? Or what do you think about tests in
all
your
the tests that
classes,
you
like your
have to-
spelling tests and your math tests? Like, talk about that, and like the map test. Like,
Every day
talk on the mic.
Every day it's a test. Every day when we're going to take a test, I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't like this.
Why don't you like them?
Because it takes so long. Like in my school, they took like to get like 2 done. It took about an hour.
Really?
Yeah.
But do you like the tests when they tell you how you're doing, or like what
No.
are
Does
tests
it
for?
mean anything to you?
No.
Do you understand if you did well or you don't?
Yeah, they give us like grades and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year our first spelling test, it was just so easy. Like it was only like if and they and this. It was easy.
So you like them because of that?
Anna's whispering
Hold on,
something.
Anna's whispering in my ear something about tests. You want to tell him? She said that she really likes tests because if she does well on her tests, she gets to go and get a treat out of the box. So she gets a little external rewards.
That never happens to me.
Like they don't give you rewards for your tests.
They only gave us like out of the treat jar if we did good on our map test, but that's pretty much all.
Oh, that's what she said. She liked the map test. The map test is our achievement test. Like they give it to them at the beginning and the end of the year to measure improvement.
Right.
So they make a huge deal out of it because the schools get judged on those tests, basically.
Yeah.
It takes
Yeah.
so long.
So you don't like taking the big, long,
No,
standardized tests.
They have like about 100 questions.
So you don't feel that it's doing it for you. It's definitely just doing it for the school, and that's the same over here as well. So, do you have a chance to have a chat with your teachers? Do they tell you how you're improving as you're going through just by chatting to you sort of day to day, or do you not really feel that apart from the test you don't get any understanding of how you're progressing?
Did your teachers talk to you every day? Like, do they, when you take a spelling test, like on Fridays, did they bring you up and show you what you missed, or do they just give the paper back and there's your grade?
They show you and they just deal you the grade. But if you did bad and stuff, our teacher, she said she would bring you up and like
And help you extra.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So you did get a little more help for some feedback there.
I don't
Yeah.
think I ever had done it.
Just like from a parent standpoint, one of the limitations I think of our school system here in America is that I think that if your child is doing well, if they are what we call over here proficient or distinguished, and that's in Kentucky, that's what our testing system is. If they are either of those, I feel like that they don't really get a lot of attention. So if you're falling below that, you get a lot of attention, but our kids that are doing well and excelling, they sort of fall through the cracks because we just don't really have the manpower that we really need
and schools are judged by overall performance, and it's a heck of a lot easier to take a kid from low achieving to middle achieving, right?
Yeah.
It is once the kids get to be proficient or distinguished, they're high achieving kids. So it's harder to move a kid from proficiency to distinguished. So you don't get the bump in the scores. You don't get the funding from the state and the federal government. So it's beneficial for schools to focus on, not that they shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that like it's easier. Basically your average goes down. They work to the median than they do work to the top.
And that's just
Sure.
part of the public school system.
Yeah, and I think that's often the case, isn't it? It just it works on the funding and it works on what the school needs to do, and it's not focused on per individual pupil, and I think that's probably an important takeaway for anything which sort of gets reintroduced back into schools, that every child's important, and from that standpoint it doesn't matter whether you're trying to achieve from sort of low to high or from medium to high or whatever it is, just making sure that everyone's progressing and enjoying their learning, and then everything is possible from that point, and I think that's really key. So my next question is how often do you discuss things sort of apart from the academic subjects like your spelling and your math and that kind of thing? How often do you get to chat about things like exercise and what you eat? Do they talk about how much sleep you get, or do you do anything like mindfulness or gratitude or things that aren't just academic subjects but about your general well-being, or things that are part of your life outside of academic subjects? So do those things get discussed during your school day or during your school week or at any given point?
Isaac, do your teachers like ever ask you like how you're doing at home, or if you're happy, or do
Do
they?
they talk about it's important to exercise or to eat well? Like, do you guys ever talk about those types of things?
At school?
Nope, not really. Except for like exercise, because the gym teacher always does it.
Right. Do any of your other teachers outside of the gym teacher talk about that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just during that particular subject. That kind of makes sense, I guess. If you've got a separate teacher talking about those particular things.
I think they do a little bit of what they call character education. They do some of that, like Isaac was talking about the morning meeting earlier. So they have a little, like, I guess, mantra, for lack of a better word, that they do. It's called pause. What does pause stand for?
Do you remember? It's been like 3 months since he's been in school.
What does pause stand for? Like, what's the P?
Patience and tolerance for others.
Patience and tolerance for others.
Okay, and then what's A?
Always do your best.
Always do your best.
And then what?
What's the W?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember?
W, work responsibly, and something else I forgot.
Work responsibly. Okay.
And what else? What was the S?
It's W had something else at the end, but I forgot.
Okay.
What is it, Anna?
Wait.
Do you remember the W in pause,
Yeah,
Anna?
that is. And what's the S?
Yeah.
What's the S?
Oh, wait, anything.
Now, Isaac, you've only been out of school like 2 months. You know this.
So they do incorporate that, but like it's hard, I guess, especially because you guys are in like the UK and your all's system is different. But like, it's hard to stress how much there's very few subjects that are tested. It's like social studies, math, science.
Well, and in primary, it's
English.
reading and math.
And
That's it.
reading and math. And basically the entire 90% of what they do at school is to bring up their reading and math scores. So
they may incorporate some science, some health into it, things like that, into their reading, but reading and math is always the first priority in the primary years.
And like if you go to a meeting and you're like, hey, I've got these 3 things and I want to incorporate in here, they'll basically say, okay, where is that on the test? And if it's not on the test, it's the back burner. So if you can do it, you do. If you don't, and teachers are being judged by those test scores too. Like they can lose their job if they're not, performing correctly. So there's no incentive to bring in anything else but what they want you to teach, because it's not going to help you keep your job. So,
yeah, and that often seems to be the case. It's that sort of compartmentalizing of everything. Over here they've got a thing called PHSE, which is kind of that sort of general health and well-being, but it comes in just a small section of the week and not necessarily all of the time, rather than it being part of the bigger picture. And each time you're learning something, even if it's an academic, bringing it back into your general well-being, how it fits into your day-to-day life and all that sort of thing. They don't seem to be able to do that sort of cross-curricular idea to the extent that I think maybe it would be supportive if it was a bit more regular, like every day chatting about it, and bringing it back into your academic studies and seeing how that fits in generally. So it sounds like your system over there is a lot like it is over here, and I think, like you say, with the focus on the tests and with that funding in people's jobs, like it kind of makes sense that that's the way it's going.
Yeah, and there's a natural tendency to do that when it's a huge system with lots of people and there's money's involved, so they have to have budgets and things like that, and they have to prove, I guess, results to the general public that the money's not going to waste. And so having numbers lets them do that. We have some friends though, like we've had a lot of our friends have like kind of went into private education and homeschool stuff, because like we have some friends out in San Diego and they send their kid to an entrepreneurial school. It's a school designed privately for making kids more entrepreneurial, more business minded, more independent, and their curriculum is way different than the school systems.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so like there's a lot of like things like that happening over here, which aren't possible everywhere, but it is, making things better.
Yeah, so it's just a question of it, sort of looking around your area, and if you find something you think fits and you're in a position to pay for it or in a position to move, then you can then choose given that opportunity.
Yeah, but I mean, like we live in a very small. We think
there really aren't.
Yeah,
a lot of
there's
private
not
school
choices. Like
opportunities here.
Yeah, that's why we go to the school that we go to, because the independent school that we go to is a lot higher achieving than the county schools. But we don't have other options. There are no other options here.
Apart from the homeschooling, and that's a whole different ballgame.
So I'm not really wanting.
We
to
stopped
do that,
teaching
so.
for a reason. We're not getting back into it, or otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. Great. So our next question is about how often do you talk about sort of life cycle, really, about babies being born or for people passing on? Is that something which gets brought up within your school year? There's my as I said on previous podcasts, there's my daughter's school has a thing where they ring a big old-fashioned school bell every time there's a member of their family born, and it's sort of everyone then claps when they hear the bell, and it's sort of quite a nice way of welcoming in a new member to the community. And I think that's a really nice thing to do. Do you do anything like that and sort of appreciate the whole sort of life cycle of people being born?
Do they talk about that, Isaac? Anybody being born or anybody
Like
dying?
People have
or
a new brother or sister or anything like that.
do the
Do
teachers
they
talk
bring
about
anything to
that?
school?
Or
Not really.
Not really.
yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I don't think that would be.
It's probably more on a classroom level. Like,
Yeah.
if somebody had a new brother or sister, they might bring it up at the classroom level, but I don't think it's at like a full school
They
level.
do birthdays in the beginning, don't they, Isaac? Don't they do birthdays in the morning in the gym?
Yeah, at the end before they dismiss us to our class, the principal says, "Does anybody have a birthday?" They go up to the middle, and then they say their names into the microphone, and then everybody in there yells "Happy birthday."
Oh, okay. Hey, Isaac, don't say his name, but the little boy who has cancer that was in your school, did they talk about him, or did they talk, like, I know that was a really big thing for the school last year. Did they talk about him any in your classroom, or did anybody talk about that, or did you guys just like hear about it and know about it?
They said about him.
They didn't say anything about him?
Announced it or no?
No, like the day he came in, the principal, he like told about him and stuff. A lot of people are wearing shirts that says team and his name at the bottom.
Okay, I got you. So they made a really big deal about that in the school last year,
Yeah.
supporting him, didn't they?
Yeah.
And yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's happened in my daughter's school as well. Sadly there was an accident with one of the people just in the year above her, and sadly the person died, and they were very supportive. Actually, they had professionals coming in because obviously this person was a friend with lots of the people there. They had professionals coming in to help, but they've got a memory bench, and they've had an assembly and various things pointed throughout the rest of the year just to sort of keep his memory alive and remember that it's not just a one-off thing. You know, it did happen, and it was incredibly tragic. But at the same time, you know, everyone else is still living their life and carrying on, and you need that continual support. So my next question is, how often do you discuss money and savings or anything financial? Have you done any kind of projects in school which work along those lines? I mean, some of the things that happen over here is sometimes there might be a school fete or a school fair, and some of the students get to do a stall, so they have to sort of plan on how much money they'll need to get the ingredients to make a cake or something, and then they'd sell the cake and see how much profit they make. Is that those sorts of projects, anything you get a chance to do over there?
I think maybe some of the upper levels do like a career fair, and some of the like middle and high schools even will do like a entrepreneurial fair.
But not the elementary schools.
I don't know. Do you guys do any type of like, you have so much money and you have to buy stuff? Do you do anything like that?
Didn't you do a project last year like that though? Like where you had to think of what a business was or something like that? Like,
do you guys do a career fair? Will people come and talk to you from different jobs? You've had people come in and talk to you, haven't you? Yeah. So they will do some special stuff like that where community members will come in and talk about what they do, but it's probably like maybe a couple of times a year at their age. Yeah.
And also a lot of these things, sometimes some schools feel that actually a lot of these things should be covered at home or that sort of thing. And I guess especially in your family, where you've had a complete sort of change of career and a change of lifestyle and that sort of thing, is that something which sort of comes up within your conversations as a family?
Oh yes,
definitely
daily. Like we our one of our goals is to develop we're developing a curriculum for kids for entrepreneurship and parents that will help them do that. And we talk about it every day. Our kids already have YouTube channels that are monetized, and
they have a checking account.
They have a checking account.
I don't know a whole lot of other 8 and 6-year-olds that have checking accounts, but they have checking accounts.
And we talk about, like, they have to earn money around here, and we talk about that all the time because we know firsthand from teaching and going through the school system that they're not going to teach that to our kids.
We talk a lot about opportunity costs. That's a huge thing in our business. If you choose one thing, you lose another.
Yeah.
We talk about that pretty much every day.
Isaac, how many times do you hear me say, if you choose one thing, you lose another? We all make choices.
Every day.
I think is the right answer.
Entrepreneur life.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not taught in schools here. So
Yeah, no, that sounds good, and I think you're absolutely right that those things are really important, and sadly not every family is in a position to help their kids out like that, so it does make a bit of a change. And the next question is about, do you work with a mentor? Do you know what a mentor is? But I guess that, carrying on from what you just said, a lot of it is a lot of what you just said. A mentor doesn't necessarily have to be a teacher or someone that you have extra in your school. It can be someone outside of school. It can be a parent if you've got something specific that you want to work on. And it sounds like this project you were just talking about in terms of finances, you would take on that role, I guess, a little bit of actually being a mentor for those sorts of students.
Isaac, do you have any other people mentor who help you? Didn't they do the little? Who did you tell me was doing the Big Brother thing? Or?
Oh, that's for her cheerleading team, but it hasn't started yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that they really do this a whole lot at school, especially for people who have like a strong home life. And I think that the majority of the students in our school system do. So
Well, I wouldn't say that, maybe not the majority. Well, yeah, maybe the majority.
I would say in our school system, yes. Now there are other school systems around here where that's not the case.
Yeah,
but
we have a lot of poverty in Southeast Kentucky, so
But I think that our school
are
district
problems.
is pretty strong, and most people, I think a majority of our students have a loving, caring home life.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that mentorship, especially at this age, falls to the parents. And
Yeah.
that's the reason we wanted to set our business up the way that we did, so that we could be more involved in their lives. We could go to eat lunch with them at school and spend more time with them volunteering at school.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. And my next question is about sort of leading a team of people, and I guess from a parent's point of view, actually having that time to be in school, then you obviously get a chance to set an example like that. And do you get a chance to work with children along those lines in terms of leading people, and do the children get a chance to be able to lead projects and things that go on, or is it literally they're much more passive and they end up having to do what they're told via the school or via their teachers?
Isaac, when you do projects, does your teacher let you be the leader or someone else be the leader, or they always just, like any project at school, do you get the chance to be a leader ever, or do you work in a group, or does the teacher just tell you what to do and you do whatever you're told? Talking to the mic, buddy.
She tells you what to do, and then we sometimes have groups.
When there's a group, do you get the chance to be the leader sometimes, or other people get to be the leader?
I think I have been a leader.
Yeah?
once. I forgot.
What about like when you're walking around the halls and stuff? Like if you're going to lunch, who gets to be the leader?
You need a line leader?
Yeah, do you get to be the line leader sometimes? And
We had this thing in our class. No, I don't think any other class had this. Well, maybe in but we had this little thing to where it tells you like a job to do,
okay.
and I got line leader like twice.
And everybody
I
had a
think-
job in the class that day.
Yeah, but I
basically.
think it's more of a system, like a fairness type thing. They
Yeah.
draw a name out, and the person gets to be the line leader. I think that there's a big initiative right now in American schools to go to what's called project-based learning. I'm sure that you've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a big initiative right now, and they're trying to get more into that, but I think it's just a slow process.
Well, they had a project last year too, where Anna and her group they were given this thing called the Codapillar, and they had to basically code this little robot toy to drive around the room and avoid obstacles they had laid around. But it was a very much like they just basically showed them how the Codapillar worked, and the teacher didn't participate. So each
Right.
group had to figure it out on their own and come up with their own hierarchy of who was in charge and whatever. And that's pretty, good stuff for a kindergarten class. So
Yeah, absolutely, and I think people often they do fall into their skills and their strengths then, don't they, as well? People then put themselves forward for the strengths that they feel that they can do, and that sort of natural selection, I think, then is a really positive one, because everyone feels comfortable in what they're actually participating in. So yeah, great. And so along the same sort of lines of projects, but more about things that happen within school. Do you do any kind of concerts, or are there sports events, or I guess do you do any sort of musicals, or any sort of production that within the school that you get to participate in, or is that something you'd volunteer in, or do you not get the chance to do it at all? I guess.
Depends on the
he's
school.
talking about like the Kentucky Derby, field day, and
We
like
had
the
Kentucky field day.
what was that? And what was that singing thing y'all did with the Thanksgiving stuff? What was that? Like
Yeah, they have occasional productions, like where the children will sing. They will sort of put on like a play, I guess, for lack of a better term, for the parents. So that's like a couple times a year. They do special things like they'll bring in singing groups to perform for the students.
Especially from the local high schools. Like they'll
Yep.
bring those kids over, and they do we're very sports culture minded in America, especially, but like sports are a big thing here. So like, you know, like every year in the Kentucky Derby happens, they go and draw it off, and the kids like make little toy horses and they run and race. And so I think that you would get and like when the football team is about to have their first game, like the football players go over and they have big sports stuff to rally the troops around the community kind of deal. And so that's, I would say that would be more of an emphasis than like art stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes and from my perception from over in the UK as well, that's the sort of thing that we see a lot of. That sort of the big sports events and that sort of thing is the thing that I would get the impression is much more prevalent on a day to day from a school anyway.
Without question, there's a local district here, and each elementary school has a basketball team.
Right.
And that's like 3rd and 4th graders, and there's hundreds of people playing at these games, like watching these games. So like it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, cool. And then so just to wrap it up and to finish off, I'm interested to know the things that you enjoy doing the most in school, Isaac. Is it or the things you enjoy in the most rather, do they happen in school? So with the sports and the clubs that you do in school and the learning you do in school, or is the best part of your day after school, maybe an after school club or a sport activity after school, or I guess just being at home rather than being at school? What's your favorite part of the day?
Do you like to go to school?
What do you like the best? Do you like being at school or after school?
After school.
After school, why?
What do you mean?
Like why would you rather come home?
What do you like about after school?
Like after school is where I'm at home and stuff.
Yeah.
I play on my computer.
Back to the computers. Yeah. What do you like? What do you like in school? Because you bounce out of the car every morning.
You love school. What do you like about it? Do you like being with your friends?
Just playing on the playground in gym class.
Okay. So
Yes.
So having fun with your friends and being active, that all seems like an important part of everyone's day, and it's just it's whether they see that as an integral part of being at school or just a sideline of things they have to do apart from the studying as well. So yeah, that seems really important. Fab, well, thank you very much for chatting to me. I think that's really interesting to get a really good idea of how your school is over there in Kentucky, and I really appreciate your time.
Isaac, he said he's coming over to my microphone.
He wants to see you.
He wants to see you on the monitor.
He said thank you for talking to him about school.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yes, and thank you both for being so supportive and helping us through that. That was really, really good, and it's great to get your sort of parental ideas as well as your insights as teachers as well.
We love talking about this. It's an important topic.
Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com.